Shalom, shalom. This is the brother Yair Radah coming at y'all with another video through the Spirit. First and foremost, I want to give all honor and glory to Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahweh Shai. Yahweh being the name of the Heavenly Father, who the world calls God. Yahweh Shai being the name of his beloved Son, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus. And today with this video, we're going to go, Lord willing, we're going to go through Revelations chapter 20. All right, we're going to do a breakdown on Revelation chapter 20. Big topic. A lot of these Christian pastors, you ask them about Revelation chapter 20 and what's supposedly going to happen with the devil and Satan and all hell kind of break loose, right? Either they don't know how to break it down, or they push it aside and say, oh, well, don't worry about that right now, right? That we'll figure out in the end. Right, because they don't know how to rightly divide the word of truth, man. And they false prophets in these last days, just like it tell you all throughout the scriptures. Right? But Lord willing, through the Spirit, y'all edified, and we can go through it and break these things down. Okay, so first we're going to start with Revelation chapter 20 and verse 1. Salakia. Revelation 20 and verse 1. And it reads, "And I saw an angel come down from heaven, having the key of the bottomless pit and a great chain in his hand." Now, that bottomless pit is talking about a landmass, right? That pit is talking about a landmass. This is the book of 2nd Esdras chapter 5, and this is the book of 2nd Esdras chapter 5 and verse 23, and it reads, "And said, O Lord, that bearest rule of every wood of the earth and of all the trees thereof, thou hast chosen the only one vine." Right? So the Lord's favorite tree is a vine tree. Verse 24, "And of all the lands of the whole world, thou hast chosen thee one pit." So a pit is going into a certain landmass or multiple landmasses, right? A pit could be talking about any landmass, but right now we're getting an understanding that in Revelation chapter 20, that bottomless pit is a landmass. Okay, and to finish the verse, it says, "And of all the lands of the whole world, thou hast chosen thee one pit, and of all the flowers thereof, one lily." Now, that it says, Salakia, says, having the key of the bottomless pit and the great chain in his hand in Revelation chapter 20. Now, that bottomless pit is talking about Europe. Okay, that bottomless pit is talking about Europe. Let's go to the book of Revelations chapter 7. Salakia. Or Salakia 17 and verse 8. This is the book of Revelation chapter 17 and verse 8. And it reads, "The beast that thou sawest and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit." Now the beast that thou sawest was and is not is talking about Rome, which was. Rome was and is not, because Rome is obviously not here on the earth right now as far as that kingdom being established. So Rome is the beast that was and is not. And then it says, "And shall ascend out of the bottomless pit." Now, who ascended out of the bottomless pit? That's talking about America, aka the daughter of Babylon. That's who ascended out of that pit, right? Coming from where? Coming from Rome. Right? They back on the earth. They just came into power. Same people that's in power right now, just in a different time. Right? To finish the verse, it says, "The bottomless pit and go into perdition, and they that dwell on the earth shall wonder, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundations of the world, when they behold the beast that was and is not, and yet is." Because in this particular time period, you got to think, John wrote this. During this time, America wasn't on the scene. Okay, America wasn't on the scene at this time. That's why it says in verse 8, at the bottom of verse 8, it says, when they behold the beast that was and is not, talking about Rome, and yet is. Okay, meaning and yet is. Let's jump up to verse 11 real quick. It says, and the beast that was, talking about Rome, and is not, because Rome is not in power anymore right now, and is not, even is the 8th, and is of the 7th, and goeth into perdition. That's talking about America. Okay, when you go to Daniel chapter 7, let's go to it real quick. Okay, Daniel chapter 7 and 7. This is the book of Daniel chapter 7 and verse 7, and it reads, after this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible, and strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with the feet of it. And it was diverse from all the other beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. I considered the horns, and behold, they came up among them another little horn, before whom whom there were 3 of the first horns plucked up by the roots, and behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking great things. Now, who speaks great things? The daughter of Babylon, America. They speak great things and great blasphemies against who? The Most High, his saints. Right? So that bottomless pit back, that bottomless pit back in Revelation chapter 20 and verse 1 that it's talking about that landmass. Okay. So it says, and I saw, so we going back to Revelation chapter 20 and starting at verse 1 and reading down. It says, and I saw an angel come down from heaven, having the key of the bottomless pit. Okay, talking about Europe. And it reads, and a great chain in his hand, verse 2, and he laid hold on the dragon, that old serpent, which is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years. Now, this is starting to go into, well, first we got to figure out who that beast is, who that dragon is, Salakia. Who's that dragon? Okay, which is that old serpent, which is the devil and Satan. Okay, so who is that? Who is that dragon talking about? Who is the dragon referred to throughout the scriptures? Okay, let's go to the book of Job, chapter 30 and verse 29. Let's go to the book of Job, chapter 30 and verse 29. This is the book of Job, chapter 30 and verse 29, and it reads, I am a brother to dragons and a companion to owls. So who is a brother to dragons, right? The Israelites are, right? Who's our brother, our so-called brother, right? Esau, okay? The Edomites, the so-called white man according, right, to the Bible, okay? So that's who that dragon is, right? Let's get another one. Let's go to the book of Psalms. Let's go to the book of Psalms, chapter 44. Let's go to the book of Psalms, chapter 44. And I want to start at 19, right? This is the book of Psalms, chapter 44 and verse 19. And it reads, though thou hast sore broken us in the place of dragons, and covered us with the shadow of death. Okay, so where are we being broken at, man, in these last days? And really a lot of throughout time, right? Where are we being broken at, right? Amongst dragons. Who are those dragons? The so-called white man. The so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans have always been getting broken by who? The so-called white man. All right. Not always, but for a majority of time now. Right? So Job 30 and 29 and Psalms 44 and 19, right, is telling you who that dragon is that's going into Revelation chapter 20 and verse 2. Okay, now let's read it again, and then we're gonna break it down further, Lord willing. It says, This is Revelation chapter 20 and verse 2. And he laid hold on the dragon, that old serpent, which is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years. Okay, so he laid hold on that great dragon, talking about the so-called white man. All right, and he bound him 1,000 years. Now, a lot of people, now, when you get to this part, all hell kind of break loose. The pastors start going off. Pastors start going way off. Brothers don't know what's going on. They don't know that. They kind of just skip over it, like that's not right there, and say, "Oh, don't worry about it. We'll figure it out when we get there." But this prophecy has already came to pass. Okay, and we're gonna go through the precepts and break it down, Lord willing. All right, because this prophecy has already came to pass. The so-called white man's time of being bound for 1,000 years happened during the so-called Dark Ages. Okay, and let's prove it. All right, let's prove. Let's go to the book of 2nd Esdras, chapter 12. Okay, before we get that, so during this time, Salaki. So during this time, you had the so-called Dark Ages going on, while the so-called white man was not in power anymore, according to the scripture, being bound for that 1,000 years. Okay, that 1,000 years was from the 5th century all the way to the 15th century. During that time, you had so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans ruling Europe. They called it the Dark Ages. In school, they tell you you don't really learn too much about it, because they try to say, oh, it's like they try to say, oh, we don't know a lot about that time, or they try to say all the records were thrown away. We don't have a lot of history or documents from that time period. But that is a lie. They choose Salakia not to teach you a lot about that time period, because we were the ones that was actually ruling during that time period, right? You had the Moors. Okay, you could go and check in and look up things about the coat of arms, where you literally had so-called black men ruling Europe during this time period. Okay, and another what's the other term for? Another term for the so-called Dark Ages is the Middle Ages. All right, now let's get into this, because during this time, well, actually, this is prophesied in the scriptures in the book of 2nd Esdras, chapter 12 and verse 19, and I'm gonna bring it out. It says, "And whereas thou sawest the 8 small under feathers sticking to her wings," this is the interpretation, "that in him there shall arise 8 kings, whose time shall be but small, and their years swift," right? Going all the way from Nero all the way down to Romulus Augustus. It says, "And 2 of them shall perish, the middle time approaching." Okay, the middle time approaching, right? What's the other name for the so-called Dark Ages? The Middle Ages. Okay, it says, "And 2 of them shall perish, the middle time approaching. 4 shall be kept until their end begin to approach, but 2 shall be kept until the end." Now, you have from Nerva down to Romulus Augustus. Romulus Augustus is actually the last emperor, or whatever you have to reign before the so-called Dark Ages or the Middle Ages approached. Romulus Augustus, actually, he only ruled for like 1 year. He ruled from 476 AD till 476, Salakia, 475 AD to 476 AD, Salakia. That was the time which he reigned. Once that time was over with, that was the fall of the Holy Roman Empire. That was the fall of it. Okay, because you had the Holy Roman Empire during that time. You had 2 parts. You had the East and you had the West. He was the ruler over the West. Boom. Once he fell from power, Salakia, Once he fell from power, boom, that was the start of the so-called Middle Ages or Dark Ages, which was when the so-called white man fell from power and was being bound for those 1,000 years. That 1,000 years being from the 5th century all the way to the 15th century. During that entire time span, you had blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans ruling Europe, right? And this is actual history. Okay, so let's read Salakia. I want to go back to Revelation 20. Revelation chapter 20. It says, I want to start at Revelation 20. We'll read 2 again. It says, and laid hold on the dragon, that old serpent, which is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years, and cast him into the bottomless pit, and shut him up, and set a seal upon him, that he should deceive the nations no more, till the 1,000 years should be fulfilled, and after that he must be loosed a little season. Now, like I said earlier, when people read that, especially in Christianity, they think, oh, we're going to get saved. Then once we get saved and go to heaven, we're going to be in heaven. And then Satan, he going to come back into power in heaven. And then we got to start all the way over again. That's not what's going on. That's not what the Lord not dealing with that. Once again, you got the that dragon being the so-called white man. Okay? The dragon being the so-called white man. Boom, you got Job 30 and 29, Psalms chapter 44 and verse 19, letting you know who and giving you clues as to who the dragon is. Who's the devil, right? Who's Satan? Okay, devil literally just means deceiver. Okay, and who deceives the entire world more than the so-called white man? Nobody. Now, he's going to be cast down from his power during this time period, from when? The 5th century to the 15th century, during the so-called Dark Ages or Middle Ages. Once that 1,000 years is over with, like we're going to read verse 3 again, it says, and cast him into the bottomless pit. That's so-called white man falling from power in Europe, falling from power from the ending with Romulus Augustus in 476 BC or AD, 476 AD. Boom, that's when they fell from power and we rose into power. It says, and shut him up and set a seal upon him, that he should deceive the nations no more. Because if the so-called white man is not in power, he can't deceive the nations. Okay, when you have other people in power and ruling, the so-called white man is at a lower state. Right now, the so-called white man is at a higher state. Why? Because he controls everything, right? The media, TV, whatever you see, the so-called, they spend billions of dollars a year to try to keep these things away from you. Okay, it says, set a seal upon him, that he should deceive the nations no more, till the 1,000 years should be fulfilled. And after that, he must be loosed a little season. Now, boom, you got the 5th century to the 15th century. After that was over with, now what happened? So-called white man came back into power. Okay? With the so-called white man coming back into power, what did they name it? What happened during that time? Remember, you got the Dark Ages, the Middle Ages, from 5th century to the 15th century. After that, during the 16th century, what happened? The Renaissance era. And the word Renaissance literally means rebirth, new, or new beginning. Okay? So that's why, and that's actually why they named it what? Renaissance. The Renaissance era. Why? Because they were starting over, right? They had just got back into power, right? After 1,000 years. Now they're saying, look, this is our new beginning. And what happened during that time? Iconoclasm. What is iconoclasm? That's when they went through and whitewashed all the images, turning all our rulers, turning all our prophets, turning all our leaders into what? So-called white men. Okay? That's what the Renaissance era is, or Salakia, that's what iconoclasm is. which happened during what time? Which happened during the Renaissance era, meaning new beginning or new. Okay, so that was the so-called white man coming back into power, where it's actually a picture of I forget who the artist's name was, but it's actually a picture of an artist painting a picture of an original of an original picture of who the world calls Jesus, which we know his name is Yahweh Shai. Right? You can look all these things up, okay, online. They even teach you a little bit. I'm surprised, but at least when I was in school, they even taught us a little bit about the Renaissance era. But the only thing that they taught about that era was basically that's when they was coming back in power. That's bad. So like that's when they was coming back in power, because they told us in school that during the Dark Ages, that's when like basically I guess they say all hell was breaking loose or whatever. I'm putting it in my words, obviously, but all hell was breaking loose, and they didn't like the inventions like decreased, and like they was like basically kind of almost reverting back to caveman like ways they tell you in school. Okay, but we understand and know that they just got taken down from power. Now reading on. Actually, Now, let's go to verse 4. Okay, let's go to verse 4. It says, "And I saw thrones." This is Revelation. This is Revelation chapter 20 and verse 4, and it reads, "And I saw thrones, and they sat upon them, and judgment was given unto them. And I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Yahweh Shai." Now, these same people that he's talking about right now in Revelation chapter 20 and verse 4 is talking about the same people you're reading about in Revelation chapter 7. Let's get it. Revelation chapter 7 and 9. This is the book of Revelation chapter 7 and verse 9, and it reads, "And this, after this I beheld, and lo, a great multitude, which no man could number, of all nations and kindreds and people and tongues, stood before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed with white robes and psalms in their hands." Now, that's who you're reading about in Revelation chapter 20 and verse 4. Now, people read Revelation 7 and verse 9 and think that means that anybody can be saved on the earth because it says all nations and people. But let's get a couple quick precepts on this real quick. Let's go to the book of Hosea chapter 1 and verse 9. This is the book of Hosea chapter 1. Salakia. This is the book of Hosea chapter 1 and verse 9, and it reads, I'll start at verse 10, and it reads, verse 9. "Then said God, call his name Lo Amini, for ye are not my people, and I will not be your God. Yet the number of the children of Israel shall be as the sand of the sea, which cannot be measured nor numbered. It shall come to pass that in the place where it was said unto them, ye are not my people, there it shall be said unto them, ye are the sons of the living God." So once upon a time, you had the northern kingdom of Israel who was cast off from the Lord for a certain period of time, but he was always going to adopt those same Israelites back who were referred to as Gentiles, but by blood, they're still Israelites. That's who the people who can't be measured nor numbered. That's who that is. It's talking about in Revelation chapter 7 and verse 9, right? But let's go back to Revelation 7 and 9 real quick. It says, "After this I beheld, and lo, a great multitude which no man could number, of all nations and kindreds and people and tongues, stood before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed with white robes and psalms in their hands." So we're that nation that can't be measured nor numbered. The Lord said in Hosea 1 and 10, "Yet the number of the children of Israel shall be as the sand of the sea, which cannot be measured nor numbered. So that's who it's talking about in Revelation chapter 7 and verse 9. Now, because people, they say, well, it says of every nation, tongue, and people. Well, let's go to Acts chapter 2 and verse 5. Right, this is the book of Acts chapter 2 and verse 5. And it reads, and there were dwelling at Jerusalem Jews, devout men out of every nation under heaven. Straight like that. That's plain. It said devout Jews out of every nation under heaven. Because we were scattered everywhere. According to what? According to the curses in Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 64. The Lord scattered us throughout all the earth. So we're everywhere. We come out of every nation, tongue, and people. And if you read on, it says, now this was noised abroad, the multitude came together and were confounded, because every man heard them speak in his own language. So we had people who spoke multiple different languages, but guess what? By blood, they're still Israelites. Just what? Coming out of every nation. And we can't be measured nor numbered. So the point is, in Revelation chapter 20 and verse 4, the beginning part of that, where it says, and I saw the thrones, and they sat upon them, and judgment was given unto them. And I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Yahushua. That's talking about the saints. That's talking about the Israelites. Now, we're the ones that have to get beheaded. We're the ones that potentially have to get martyred and die for this truth, right? That's going, and what that's going into is Jacob's trouble, during the time of Jacob's trouble. Let's stay in Revelation chapter 7 real quick. Let's go to Revelation chapter 7 and verse 14. And it says, and I said unto him, sir, actually I started at verse 13, Salakia. It says, and one of the elders answered, saying unto me, what are these which are arrayed within white robes, and whence came they? And I said unto him, sir, thou knowest. And he said unto me, these are they which came out of the great tribulation, and have washed their robes, and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. Talking about Yahushua. Now, let's jump to Revelation chapter 6 and verse 9. This is the book of Revelation chapter 6 and verse 9. And it reads, and when he had opened the fifth seal, I saw under the altar the souls of them that were slain for the word of God and for the testimony which they held. Straight like that. So we the ones that got to be slave for the Most High God. Okay? The elect, man. Right? Now, let's read on. And let's read Revelation chapter 20 and verse 4 again. And it says, and I saw the thrones, and they sat upon them, and judgment was given unto them. And I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Yahushua, talking about the elect, right? It says, Salakia, and for the word of God, and which had not worshipped the beast, neither his image, neither had received his mark upon their foreheads or in their hands, and they lived and reigned with Christ 1,000 years. Now, we're going to go through this. This is because a lot of people, they think it's talking about the chip and all this other stuff, but we're going to go through it nice and smooth. Okay? This is let's deal with it. Word of God and worship, and which had not worshipped the beast. Now the beast is going into who? Obviously, the beast is going into America. Okay? That didn't worship the beast. Let's get Revelation 13 and 4. This is the book of Revelation, chapter 13 and verse 4. And it reads, and they worshiped the dragon which gave power unto the beast, and they worshiped the beast, saying, who is like unto the beast, who is able to make war with him. So who says that about what particular country today? All the other nations, they say that about America. That's how at least it was a couple years ago. Now everybody hates America. But once upon a time, they all looked at America and said, hey, who's able to make war with America, man? A couple years ago, these other countries wouldn't dare try to speak out against America. Why? Because, hey, they was afraid of America, man. Okay, who was able to make war with the beast, man? And everybody, they worshiped the dragon, and they gave power into the beast. And it says they worship the beast, saying, who is like unto the beast? Who is like America? America has so-called everything that you could want. That's what they put out there, at least, right? Home of the land, the free, the brave, the freedom, opportunity, the land of opportunity, whatever they come up with, man. Okay. What's the #1 language in the world? English, right? Why do you have so-called the Chinese man wearing what? Damn suits now, man. How come they don't wear their ancient robes and customs and things of that nature? But guess what? They wearing suits now, trying to be like who? America, man. Everybody is trying to get their weapon systems up and build their weapon systems up to defeat who? America. They not worried about all these other little countries. The standard is America, is the point. The standard has always been America. Okay, and that's why you see these other nations, guess what? They building up to who? America. Hey, a lot of these nations feel like they see eye to eye with America now. Okay, but the point is that beast is talking about Babylon the Great, which is America. Okay, and then it says, which had not worshipped the beast, neither his image. Now, let's see what the image is going into. Let's go to the book of Romans, chapter 8. Romans chapter 8 and verse 29. This is the book of Romans chapter 8 and verse 29. And it reads, for whom he did foreknow, he also did predestinate to be conformed to the image of his son, that he might be the firstborn among many brethren. So like it might be the firstborn among many brethren. Now, that doesn't mean Yahushua looks exactly is Yahushua's twin. That doesn't mean we look exactly like Yahushua. What is that talking about? The image of Yahushua. And what was his image? Being likened to his father. Hey, however the Most High moved, guess what? That's how Yahushua moved. He's that image. That's not talking about a replica of how he looks to a T. He's his twin. That's talking about the image that he moves in, right? How he conducts himself, right? How he moves, how he acts, how he talks. All those different things put into one to create what? The image. Okay. Now, let's keep going. It says, Salakia, Revelation 20:4 says, and I saw the thrones, and they that sat upon them, and the judgment was given unto them, and I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Yahushua and the word of the Most High. Talking about the elect having to be martyred for the Most High God. It says, and which had not worshipped the beast, talking about America, neither his image. That's going into what America portrays, what they put out there. When you think about America, what comes to your mind? Okay, that's what that's going into. That was the reason for why I brought out Romans chapter 8 and verse 29, to show you that image is not necessarily something that's physical. Okay, it's not something that's physical. Yahushua, right? We try to be in the image of who? Yahushua and the Most High God. That doesn't mean we look exactly like him. That means we do what? We try to move, act, our mannerisms, everything about us. We try to replicate what? The image of Yahushua. Why? Because that's what he told us to do. That's what the Father told us to do. Okay? That's the same thing when it talks about the image of the beast. What's the image of the beast? Homosexuality, right? You can be a freak in America. You can do whatever you want to do. You can you can be a a pedophile. Okay, everything y'all know. Everybody knows what America portrays, man. You can do whatever you want in America. This is the land of the freaking whatever you want to put out there. All right. So that image is not always a physical thing. Okay, it's a spiritual thing. Now, Salakia. It says neither his image, neither had Salakia, the beast, neither his image, neither had received his mark upon their foreheads or in their hands, and they lived 1,000 years with Hamashiach, and that Salakia, and they lived and reigned with Hamashiach 1,000 years. Salakia. Now let's go to the book of Ezekiel, chapter 3 and verse 8. Because all this is spiritual. It's not talking about an actual chip that you got to get put inside of you. That's not what that mark is talking about. People like to go and they say, but the concordance is this and that and everything and this and that. But it's spiritual at the end of the day. And I'm gonna do a full breakdown on this too. I'm gonna do a full breakdown. This is Ezekiel, probably on another video. This is Ezekiel chapter 3 and verse 8. And it says, behold, I have made my face strong against their faces, and thy forehead strong against their foreheads. Talking about what? Meaning, look, if you're going to buck up, guess what? If you're going to buck up and get loud, guess what? You're going to get the same thing back. Okay, you want to dang resist, right? The words of the Most High. Hey, well, the words of the Most High is going to resist you. Okay, that's not talking about you got to have something in your forehead. All right. It's a spiritual thing. It's a spiritual mark that's going to be placed among the people. Now, if you got that mark, guess what? In your forehead, what does that symbolize? That means, look, you may not be a homosexual. Like I always say, you may not be a homosexual. You may not necessarily get down with the ways of America, but you feel like it's okay. You one of those people that say, hey, look, that's them. They can do what they do as long as they don't bring it by me. Okay. You might say, hey, if they want to be a pedophile, look, let them do them as long as it ain't with my daughter. Hey, that's going off, man. You got to hate what the Most High God hates. Just like it tell you, hey, all throughout the scriptures, just like it tell you to hate a multitude of different things, and it lists them out in the book of Proverbs chapter 8 and verse 13. Okay. So even David said, do not I hate them, O Lord, that hate thee? For I count them my enemies. I hate them with a perfect hatred, paraphrasing. Okay. So when you got that mark in your forehead, which we know is a spiritual thing, guess what? You're okay with it. You may not be a homosexual necessarily, but guess what? You're okay with those doctrines and philosophies, right? You're okay with those different things. Now, let's keep reading on. It says, have received his mark upon their foreheads or in their hands, and they lived and reigned with Hamashiach Yahushua 1,000 years. Now, it said in their forehead or in their hands. When you got it in your hands, because what do? You actually do things with your hands. It's spiritual. Remember that. So when you're doing that, what's going on? Right? What's happening? Okay? What's happening? When you're doing those different things, or Salakia, I'm getting ahead of myself. When you have the mark in your hands, you're actually doing those things. Guess what? You actually are a homosexual. Okay? You actually are a pedophile. Right? You up there sitting in the churches in Christianity, right? Clapping your hands and doing laps around the church, man. You actually doing those different things. Okay? That's what having that mark in your hand is going into. That's what it's talking about. Okay, so if you got it in your forehead, you may not do it, but it's all right with you. You got it in your hand, guess what? Hey, you get down with that. That's what you get off on those on those different type of things. And what Babylon the Great which is America, pushes and promotes out there with they what? They image. You get down with the image of the beast. You get down with the doctrines and philosophies of America. Okay? So with that, we're going to close up with that. I want to give a call, Allah, Yahweh, Ba'ashim, Yahweh, Lord willing, y'all was edified through the Spirit. Lord willing, y'all was edified through the Spirit. Abba willing, I'm gonna actually try to do a whole breakdown on the mark of the beast. But Lord willing, y'all was edified through the Spirit. Want to give a call on Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahweh again, right? Kwam Yashala.